Hello everyone, welcome all of you. So as I said, I will discuss the current affairs of 3 months of polity, 3 months that are May, June and July. So yesterday while I was going live, discussing the things live, I could not complete it because of an emergency. So today I will complete in fact I will start from the beginning. Okay? So if you have watched yesterday, you can continue after that. So the first news is that center has taken away the state's power to issue NOC for export of drugs. Center has taken up the power of state drugs organizations and given it to Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, and this is a matter of export and import. So there are authorities both at the level of center and at the level of state who give NOC for export and import of drugs. And you know that in the month of March, April, May, there were reports from Central African countries, then West African countries, that due to consumption of Indian imported drugs, particularly cough syrups, many of the children and other people have died. So take into account the export of duplicate or poor quality drugs, India has taken this decision that it will shift the power that is with the state drug organizations, the power to grant NOC for export and import, and it will give it to Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. Okay? So it has become the sole authority for issuing manufacturing licenses for new drugs meant for export. Rest of the powers of the state drugs organizations are same, only the export import NOC has been taken and given to central organization. Alright, so about Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, it is India's national regulatory authority for what? For pharmaceuticals, for medical devices and cosmetics. Okay, there are some other categories of biological products. The most obvious one are pharmaceuticals, that's medicines, medical devices and cosmetics. Okay? This organization is responsible for the product's safety, efficacy and quality. These are obvious things that you can understand them. Now if anyone has invented new drugs, it is the central organization that grants them approval for the new drugs. Then clinical trials and it also sets standard for drugs, also advises state drug control organizations on manufacturing of different kind of pharmaceuticals. Okay, one thing you need to know that in which ministry this organization falls, because if you see the name Central Drugs Control Organization, the names may convey the message that this organization falls in Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizer, but this is incorrect. This organization falls in Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. A time when the name of the organization is not obvious as to in which ministry it falls, UPSC can ask question from there. Okay? So this organization falls in Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and there is a Directorate General of Health Services in the ministry, and this organization has been established in Directorate General of Health Services. Okay? In the year 1940, while British rule was there in India, the government regulated came up with Drugs and Cosmetics Acts of 1940. So Central Drugs Standard Control Organization is ruled by or regulated by, or it gets its mandate from this 1940 Act, Drugs and Cosmetics Organization, Act of 1940. Now if you see, due to the spurious nature of many of the drugs, India has decided to uplift, or rather to improve its quality of manufacturing, or rather the standards of quality of manufacturing to the level of WHO's standard, and that standard is called as the standard recommended by World Health Organization is called as good manufacturing practices. The name looks very simple, good manufacturing practices. It means the quality standard of the drug must be up to the level of international standards, and that international standards with respect to pharmaceutical manufacturing is recommended by World Health Organization. So the standard is good manufacturing practices. The name will suggest that this is not a rocket science to understand the meaning, but what is important here is that this practice is suggested by WHO, and it is related to the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. So India has decided to uplift or rather to elevate its standard of manufacturing drugs to the level of WHO's standard, that is good manufacturing practices. One more fact related to this organization, that it has a portal called as Sugam portal to obtain NOC, means to obtain export import clearance or orders, or to kind of get approval for new drugs and clinical trials. Okay? So with respect to this organization, 2-3 things you need to know. First is that it has become the sole authority to issuing manufacturing license for new drugs meant for export, means whichever drug is to be exported, this organization, central organization, will grant NOC. Okay? Then it is regulated by Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. Remember the year 1940? Then it falls in Ministry of Health and Family Welfare under Directorate General of Health Services. Then it has Sugam portal through which the manufacturers can get the NOC. Then there is WHO's good manufacturing practices. All right. So let's move on to next. One small news, that International Center for Audit of Local Governance, means local bodies like panchayats in India, municipalities. Okay? So there has been a center established for the audit of local governance, and it has been established in Rajkot, Gujarat. So remember the place, Rajkot, Gujarat. That it will aims to set global standards for auditing local governance bodies. In India, one of the main issues with local bodies, panchayats and municipalities, is that there is very poor or no auditing of these bodies. Means what amount they are getting, where they are spending, what is the effectiveness of the spending, whether the outcome is proportionate to the spending or not. This is one of the main criticism of local bodies in India. One state that is good when it comes to auditing of local bodies, that is Kerala. It has a good auditing practice of local bodies, but still this practice is limited only to Kerala and nowhere else. So you can say that if you are writing a, let's say, mains question on local bodies, one of the points you can have is auditing of local bodies, and with the establishment of this International Center for Audit of Local Governance, one point you can have that all the state governments can take assistance, guidance from this organization, from this center, to audit their local bodies. Okay? Now coming to the next question. Next topic rather, cabinet committees. So India has cabinet committees for different purposes, and what we need to know in cabinet committees is that which of the cabinet committees are headed by the Prime Minister and which of the cabinet committees are headed by the Home Minister. So there are 8 cabinet committees in India. Cabinet Committee on Appointments, Cabinet Committee on Accommodation, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, Parliamentary Affairs, Political Affairs, Security, Investment and Growth, Skill, Employment and Livelihood. So one type of question can be they will give you different topics or different terms that on which of the following there is a cabinet committee on in India. ठीक है, terms can be security, political affairs, inclusive growth, है ना, investment growth, skill employment. If it is inclusive growth, that there is no cabinet committee on inclusive growth. ठीक है. One type of question can be which of the following following organizations, cabinet committees are headed by the Prime Minister. So if you see, of all the 8 committees, only 2 are headed by the Home Minister. They are Cabinet Committee on Accommodation and Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs. These 2 are headed by Minister for Home Affairs, that is current Home Minister Amit Shah. Then Cabinet Committees on Appointments, Economic Affairs, Political Affairs, Security, Investment and Growth, Skill, Employment and Livelihood. They are headed by the Prime Minister of India. Of all the 8 committees, the most powerful committee is the Cabinet Committee on Security, because its membership is of top 5 ministers of India, that is Prime Minister, Home Minister, Defense Minister, Finance Minister, and that Minister for External Affairs. They are the member of Cabinet Committee on Security. This committee is the most powerful because they have the membership of top 5 ministers of the government, you know, and also because it deals with the security matters of the country. Now, under which rule these cabinet committees are mentioned or established? So, one thing for sure is that these cabinet committees are extra constitutional. They are extra constitutional, means they are nowhere mentioned in the constitution. So it is the Transaction of Business Rules 1961 under which these committees are formed, and the Transaction of Business Rules, these rules are framed as per Article 77 clause 3 of the Constitution. So 77 clause 3 gives power to frame rules for the transaction of business of the government, and these rules were framed in 1961, and under these rules these cabinet committees are formed. So you also know that the transaction of business rules, the year 1961, and the article is 77 clause 3. Okay? So of all there are 8 cabinet committees, only 2 are headed by the Home Minister, rest of 6 committees are headed by the Prime Minister himself. Moving to the next topic, I think it's Niti Aayog related. Yes, Niti Aayog. So you know that Niti Aayog is the think tank body of the government. Means it thinks, it kind of does different kind of research. It collects different kind of data and other details about different schemes or different initiatives, and it recommends both to the central government as well as to the state government. One thing that you need to know here is that why the reconstitution of Niti Aayog? This is because the term of Niti Aayog is coterminous with the life of the government. Means if there is a new government is going to be formed, the existing Niti Aayog will disintegrate, or not disintegrate, rather it will be disbanded, and new Niti Aayog will be formed. Okay? But there is one post in Niti Aayog that is permanent, and that post is of Chief Executive Officer. The CEO of Niti Aayog is appointed, that the person who is up to the rank of Secretary to the Government of India, he or she can become or is qualified to become Chief Executive Officer. Okay? And they are appointed for 2 years. So this post is permanent. Okay? But the term of Niti Aayog is co-terminus with the government. All right. So you know that it was formed in 2015 and it was formed by the resolution of the Union Cabinet. Now remember Planning Commission. Planning Commission was also formed by the resolution of Union Cabinet in 1950. Again, it was both erstwhile Planning Commission and now Niti Aayog. They are neither constitutional body nor statutory body. Therefore, they were formed through the resolution of the Union Cabinet. You know, let's say compare this with CAG. This is constitutional body. RBI, SEBI, they are statutory body mandated by particular act of the parliament. Okay? Now the chairperson, the obvious one, you know it, the Prime Minister of India. The most important body of Niti Aayog is the Governing Council. Okay? What Prime Minister refers to as Team India. So who all are the members of the Governing Council? Remember the Prime Minister himself, he is the chairman of Niti Aayog. Chief Ministers of all states and UTs with legislature, Lieutenant Governors of other UTs. Then there are ex officio members. Ex officio members means the Prime Minister can invite up to a maximum of 4 members of Union Cabinet. Means the Prime Minister can invite 4 central ministers as ex officio members to the meeting of the Governing Council of the Niti Aayog. Similarly, and one more, a vice chairperson of Niti Aayog. Then there are full-time members. Then there are special invitees. Again, the chairman, that is the Prime Minister, can invite up to 4 experts, specialists and practitioners with relevant domain knowledge nominated by Prime Minister. Means Prime Minister can invite up to 4 persons with certain kind of specialization in different fields who have specific knowledge of their domain. Okay? So then your regional councils, CEO is appointed by the Prime Minister of India for a fixed term of 2 years. You know, for the longest time, starting with the start of Niti Aayog, it was Amitabh Kant who was the CEO of Niti Aayog. He was there for almost, I think, 5-6 years. Okay? All right. So facts that you need to know is that CEO is the permanent post, but Niti Aayog is co-terminus with the life of the government. Then you have it's an extra constitutional, extra statutory body formed in 2015, 1st January. All right, you know the Governing Council members, chairperson is Prime Minister, CEO is appointed by the Prime Minister himself. So Niti Aayog has 2 mandates. The first is the monitoring of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. You know the goals has to be completed by 2030. Niti Aayog has also tailor-made the 17 SDGs of United Nations, suiting to the Indian conditions. Okay? And it is the responsibility of Niti Aayog to oversee the implementation and achievement of Sustainable Development Goals in India. Then its role is to promotion of competitive and cooperative federalism. So Niti Aayog comes up with different kind of reports, data, index pertaining to different states in India, and that reports, indices, they themselves propel the states to perform better, compete with each other, and eventually perform better. Okay? There was one more news related to Niti Aayog. It was Sampurnta Abhiyan. This Abhiyan is a temporary one for 6 months only. Okay? No, sorry, 3 months, not 6 months. And this is a campaign to achieve the objectives, aims and objectives of the indicators in aspirational districts program and aspirational blocks program. So whatever has been the target set up in the aspirational districts program and aspirational blocks program, the aim is to achieve those goals. Okay? So simple one, Sampurnta Abhiyan. Then we have one more news from Punjab, where there was a bill pertaining to the universities in Punjab. You know the Chancellor of universities is the governor, and the bill tried to remove governor as Chancellor and make the Chief Minister of the state as Chancellor of universities. So when this bill was passed by the Punjab Assembly, the governor reserved the bill for the consideration of president. You know, in article 200 of the Constitution, the bills can be reserved by the governors for the consideration of the president. Now, the moment governor reserves the bill for the consideration of the president, the governor will have no role. Okay? The president may give assent or he may return the bill to the assembly for reconsideration, and the assembly have 6 months to reconsider the bill, and again it will be sent to the president, but president will have no obligation to give assent to the bill, which is not the case with central Lok Sabha bills, because when it is the case of parliament giving bill to the president, president sending the bill to the parliament for reconsideration, if the parliament reconsiders, then president has no option but to give the assent. But in case of state assembly bills, there is no obligation as such on the president to give his assent. Okay? And so this was small news again. Coming to the next one, some news related to elections in India. (2024) general elections. So the first thing that you need to know is the purple color of ink. When you go for voting, the vote officer there, he or she will put an ink on your finger. Okay? So the ink has three things: chemicals, dyes, and in special compound silver nitrate. You need to know this name silver nitrate, because it is this silver nitrate, when exposed to ultraviolet light, that it gets its color and it will remain there on your finger for maybe a couple of months. Okay? So the compound is silver nitrate. There is only one company in India that manufactures that ink, and that is contracted by the Election Commission of India. The name of the company is Mysore Paints and Varnish Limited. Mysore Paint and Varnish Limited. Okay? Then there were a couple of campaigns run by the Election Commission of India. The first campaign was "You Are the One" campaign. You are the one. Means this campaign was basically to recognize the contribution of all the stakeholders in the conduct of free and fair and smooth elections. The stakeholders are government officers on duty of the Election Commission to conduct the elections. Then there are security personnel deployed to make sure that the elections are free and fair. Then you have the role of political parties, the role of booth members of different political parties. They all helped in the conduct of smooth elections. One another campaign that by Election Commission, that is verify before you amplify initiative. Verify before you amplify. So this was about fake news. What Election Commission is saying is that before you get any news related to politics and elections, please verify before forwarding it to anyone else. Okay, verify before you amplify. Now, in the context of 2024 elections, there is one more important thing that you need to know, that whether the right to vote and right to contest elections is a statutory right or not. Is a constitutional right or not? Because if you see the Constitution from Article 324 to 329, they talk about elections in India, Election Commission of India, the powers of the Election Commission, different other details of Election Commission like electoral rolls, the power of the Parliament to frame rules for the conduct of free and fair elections in India. Okay, the elections for Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, President, Vice President. All right. So they also mention something called as universal adult franchise. There was a question whether right to property is a constitutional right or not. Since right to property is under Article 300, it is a constitutional right. Then you have a fundamental rights chapter in part 3 of the constitution, okay? And this is right to property in the constitution, but not in part 3. So you can safely conclude that all the fundamental rights in the constitution are constitutional rights, but all constitutional rights are not fundamental rights. They are not fundamental rights. So there was a debate around universal adult franchise, whether your right to vote is a constitutional right or not, because it's already given in the constitution. Okay? Now this matter came before the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, I think at least on 4 occasions it has come before the Supreme Court, and eventually in the last, the Supreme Court, a constitution which headed by 5 judges, they declared that the right to vote is a statutory right, not constitutional right. Why? Because the Representation of People Act, RPA 1951, under section 62, it can regulate your right to vote. Means the Representation of People Act 1951 can prevent your right to vote in elections. For instance, this RPA 1951 says that if you are lodged in jail for various reasons, you cannot vote. Okay? So after going into the different aspects of right to vote, the Supreme Court declared that your right to vote is a statutory right, not constitutional right. Okay? And the important judgment in this case is Kuldeep Nair versus Union of India. Kuldeep Nair was a prominent journalist of India. Okay? So in his case, the Supreme Court declared that your right to vote is statutory, not constitutional. Okay? All right. So couple of things more that you need to know about RPA. The first is that the section 8 of the Representation of People Act, that talks about different kind of disqualifications provisions. Okay? Section 8 of RPA. Now what happens is that most of you know that the RPA has provision that whenever a member of parliament or MLA is punished and sentenced for at least 2 years, then he or she will stand disqualified from contesting elections for another year. Means another 6 years. Means the disqualification period is of 6 years, and this disqualification period runs after the sentence is completed. Okay? But this is not all. Rather, section 8 has 3 subsections, 1, 2 and 3. One is about different, it has different kind of provisions of IPC, sections of IPC. Now we have Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. So it says that for so and so violations of Indian Penal Code, a person can be penalized for different time periods or sentenced for different time periods. It also has, in addition to the sections of IPC, it also has prominent statutes that if a person is in violation of this statute, they will stand disqualified from contesting elections. One important statute is the Prevention of Corruption Act. Now, why I am discussing section 1 is that if a person is in violation of section 1 of section 8 clause 1 of RPA, then the court may penalize them with fine and sentence, with both fine and sentence, or fine or sentence. So even if a person is fined, even if a sitting legislator or member of parliament is fined under subsection 1 section 8 of RPA, then still they will be disqualified for another 6 years. Okay? Then you have section 2, subsection 2 of section 8. It has 3 things. First, a person is found to be hoarding of different kind of essential commodities. Hoarding, adulteration of food. Then Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. In the subsection 2 case, there are 3 specific things mentioned: hoarding, adultery and Dowry Prohibition Act. if a sitting member of parliament is found to be violation of any of these three things and they are punished by the court for a minimum of 6 months, then the provision of RPA will apply and they will be disqualified for another 6 years. Okay? Then subsection 3 says that in every other case except the cases mentioned in subsection 1, subsection 2, in every other case, if a person is found to be guilty and if he or she is punished by the court for a minimum of 2 years, then they will be disqualified for another 6 years. Means in subsection 3 case, minimum 2 years punishment is necessary for disqualification, then 6 years. Okay? And if let's say the punishment is for 5 years, then the total period of disqualification will be 6 years because 11 years, because the disqualification period mentioned in RPA, they run after the completion of the sentence by that person, sitting legislature. Okay? One more section that you need to know is the section 11 of the Representation of People Act, because section 11 gives power to the Election Commission of India. That Election Commission of India, after due consideration and reasoning, it can reduce or completely remove the period of disqualification. Means if the period of disqualification is 6 years, okay, the Election Commission of India can reduce this period to 1 year or it can make it 0. It depends on Election Commission. Okay? So you must have seen that in the year 2019, a question was asked in UPSC mains that what options legislators have if they have been disqualified by the court in India. Of course, the most of us, we know that they can approach the higher courts, higher court and Supreme Court, but they also have one more option. They can approach the Election Commission of India itself, but they can approach the Election Commission of India only after completion of the sentence. Okay? Now the Election Commission of India can take all the reasons and it can decide whether it want to reduce or remove the disqualification or it does not want to act at all on their application. So there was one Chief Minister of Sikkim, Prem Singh Tamang. He was basically charged for corruption and sentenced for 1 year. After his release, he went to the Election Commission of India and Election Commission of India removed the disqualification completely. Okay? Removed the disqualification completely. So he became eligible for contesting elections again. One more thing about election petition. You know election petition, that if someone is not satisfied or they think that there is some irregularity in the election results, they can approach the High Court of that state through election petition. Now there is few conditions that if you as a voter has found some irregularity in the conduct or counting of votes, then you can approach the High Court. Now the conditions are that only the candidates, either candidate or voter of that particular constituency can approach the court. That particular constituency means that if let's say you are a voter of Karol Bagh Lok Sabha Kshetra, then then you can approach the court only in case of the results of Lok Sabha constituency, not any other constituency. Means that you must be an elector of that constituency or candidate of that constituency. Now it doesn't matter whether you have voted or not. Even if you have not voted in that election, still you can approach the High Court. Moreover, the High Court enjoys original jurisdiction in matters of hearing the election results cases. Okay? So High Court has original jurisdiction, means that you have to approach the High Court directly, not lower courts. First is the condition that you can approach the High Court. Second, you must be a candidate or an elector to that particular constituency. Third, you must approach the High Court within 45 days to challenge the election results. Okay? So this was about election petition. Then moving on to one more news from elections, that is Form C. Sorry, Form 17C. Form 17C. So Form 17C, the term is important because they may ask you that Form 17C is related to maybe elections, revenue, something else. Okay. So it's related to first elections, and it has data about who are the voters, who are the people who have voted in this particular election, who are the voters who have not voted, the name of the candidates, the amount of votes that they have secured. So all the details are there in Form 17C. These are provided by the returning officers in every district. Form 17C. Okay? They are issued under the Conduct of Election Rules 1961. So this is not important, but you know that Form 17C is related to elections. This much information is sufficient. All right. Couple of news related to rights. One news I talked about, right to vote. Then you have right to property. So Supreme Court has said that the right to property is a constitutional right. This is provided under Article 300A, and that if the state is acquiring property of anyone, the state has to compensate them as per the given rules in the statutes. Okay? You know that there is one law framed in 2013 on the acquisition of property. So the Supreme Court has clarified that the right to property is a constitutional right, and it is unconstitutional if proper procedure is not established and followed before depriving a person of his or her right to property. Okay? The important thing that you need to know is that this right was made, or rather removed out of the fundamental right through 44th constitutional amendment. Okay? 44th constitutional amendment omitted the right to property as fundamental right. One more news related to fundamental rights. There was a case, Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India in 2020. The Supreme Court said that since every citizen of India enjoys a right to freedom under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. Okay? So it does not mean that this fundamental right has to be exercised only orally. Even your expression, your speech and expression online through social media has the same protection of Article 19 of the Constitution. Okay? So freedom of expression through the medium of internet is an integral part of Article 19 of the Constitution. So simple re-emphasis of what Supreme Court has said already. Then we have one news related to mercy petition. You know, mercy petitions can be before the president. Before president, it's Article 72, and it can also be before governor. The article is 161. You know the difference between president power and the power of the governor with respect to mercy petitions. The first is that death sentences can only be pardoned by the president, not the governor. So there are two different matters, state list, central list. So whenever there is a violation of state related matters, the mercy petition lies with the governor, and whenever there is violation of the central matters, the petition lies before the president. And even related to state matters, state list matters, okay, the court has punished with death sentences. In that case also, the petition for pardoning the death sentence will lie with the president, not the governor. First difference. Second is, in case of court martial, the petition will lie with the president, not the governor. You know, the president is the chief marshal, commander in chief of all the three armed forces. So the petition will lie with the president. Okay? And I hope you know the differences between pardon remit, sentence, suspension and commute. So you can see your notes and understand the difference between them. Pardon means completely making a person, setting a person free. Okay? Commute means changing one sentence with other sentence. Remitting means reducing the period of sentence without changing the nature of the sentence. Then there's members of parliament local area development fund. You know this scheme came into existence in 1993. Okay? Again, the amount sanctioned under this scheme is 5 crore, and this 5 crore upper limit was set up in 2011-12 financial year. So every member of parliament gets rupees 5 crore to spend in their local area from where they have been elected. But you know, in India there are 3 different categories of members of parliament. First is the Lok Sabha MPs, who are elected from a specific constituency. Then you have Rajya Sabha MPs. For them the constituency is entire state, because it is all the state members who vote for their election. Then you have nominated MPs. They don't have any specific constituency in the country. Okay? Or you can say that their constituency is entire country, because they have contributed for the development of certain sectors like, let's say, art, science, है ना? So since they have contributed to certain areas and their contribution has been recognized and they have nominated as members of parliament. So when it comes to spending the amount under MP led, the Lok Sabha MP can spend his or her MP led fund in their own constituency, not out of the constituency. Although there are exceptions that I will discuss. The Rajya Sabha MP can spend anywhere in the state. Okay? And the nominated MPs can spend their money anywhere in the country, in any constituency of the country. Okay? Now the exceptions are that ki up to 25 lakh, the Lok Sabha MP who has been elected from a particular constituency, they can spend up to rupees 25 lakh outside their constituency but within the state if there is some natural calamity. But they can also spend in any constituency in the entire nation, provided that natural calamity is of very severe nature. In that case only, let's say the government of India declares as a national disaster, in certain cases. In that case, they can spend in any constituency anywhere in the country. Okay? Similarly, the Rajya Sabha MPs can also spend up to rupees 25 lakh in case of severe calamity anywhere in the country. The nominated MPs already have the power to spend their money anywhere. Okay? One more condition is that the Lok Sabha MPs can also spend up to rupees 25 lakh anywhere in the country for the promotion of national unity, harmony and fraternity. If there is any particular program or event that is organized to promote the unity and fraternity in the country, so the Lok Sabha MPs can spend up to rupees 25 lakh out of their constituency. Okay? Now a few things more, that of all the money these members spend, out of 5 crore, 15%, minimum 50% of money has to be spent on the welfare and development of scheduled caste communities. And similarly, they have to spend a minimum of 7.5% of MP led on the development and welfare of scheduled tribes. Whether they are spending within their constituency or out of their constituency, Of the 5 crore, 15%, that is 75 lakh, has to be spent on the development and welfare of scheduled caste communities, and 7.5% on scheduled tribes. So the ministry that governs this fund is Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Couple of more things. There are a couple of schemes under which this expenditure can be converged. The first is MG Narega. MG Narega, how they can use their fund in MG Narega. Let's say that there is a particular village and it wants to connect its village road with the main district or state highway, and the village has a fund of 5 lakh rupees, and the demand is, the required expenditure is 10 lakh rupees. Then the member of parliament can supplement the fund of the panchayat to construct this road. Okay? So if the village panchayat has 5 lakh budget, then the member of parliament can supplement with additional 5 lakh rupees. So the first is convergence with MG Narega. Second is Khelo India. The member of parliaments can spend their money, spend the MP-led fund on the development and welfare of sports in their specific region, specific constituency. Okay? Let's say they are supporting the athletes with fund, or renovating the sports infrastructure, maybe small stadium, other fields. So they can assist in the promotion of sports in their own constituency. Moving on to next news, Mission Karma. You know, this is a capacity building mission of capacity building commission has launched this Mission Karma Yogi, and this Karma Yogi is for the capacity building of civil servants. Civil servants are recruited by the UPSC, and also personnels, officers who are on contract with the government of India. They are also trained through this Mission Karma Yogi. Even the states have the option to use this capacity building measures to train their officers at the level of state. So this is National Program for Civil Services Capacity Building, and the Prime Minister is the head of this body. Then we have few reports by UNICEF. The first is the child food poverty report. Child food poverty report. The second is child nutrition report by UNICEF. Now you can do some homework about UNICEF. It was formed in 1945. Okay? It was basically formed to look after the welfare of kids who have lost their parents after World War II, and to address the hunger and malnutrition among children. Okay? So आपको बस you need to know the report, that child food poverty report and child nutrition report are published by UNICEF. Then you have the case of International Labour Organization. You know, this is perhaps the most old organization. It was formed in 1919 through the Treaty of Versailles, and it assisted the erstwhile League of Nations. United Nations is successor of League of Nations. Okay? So two conventions of this commission organization is important. They are Convention number 182 and Convention number 138. In fact, there have been question in 2018 UPSC prelims examination about these conventions, that what they talk about. So basically, the Convention number 138 deals with minimum age of employment. Basically, it prohibits the employment of children in industries. Then you have the case of Convention number 182. It says that the worst form of child labor. It deals with the worst form of child labor. All right. So the meeting of ILO takes place every year, the summit meeting, and in this summit meeting, certain kind of conventions are adopted. by all the parties to this organization. The report that it publishes is Asia Pacific Employment and Social Outlook. Asia Pacific Employment and Social Outlook. Now, certain provisions related to employment of children in India. First is the Article 24 that prohibits employment of children who are below the age of 14. ठीक है. Then you have Article 39 that basically says that the tender age of children should not be exploited or abused by industries and any other organization. Means that it is asking everyone to prevent from employing small children for any economic activity. We also have child labor prohibition and amendment regulation amendment act 2016, child labor act 2016. So this act has two specific provisions. First, it conforms with the Article 24, that is not employing children in any economic activity who are below the age of 14. Okay? Then it says that children who are in the age of 14 to 18, they cannot be employed in any kind of hazardous activities. Means they can be employed only in non-hazardous activities, not any kind of hazardous activities. Okay? So you know the difference between Article 24 and this statute. Article 4 prohibits any employment before the age of 14, and although it does not talks about children before the age of 14, but this statute of 2016 says that it prohibits again employment below the age of 14, but between 14 and 18 they can be employed, but not in hazardous economic activity. All right. Now this global food policy report, this is by International Food Policy Research Institute. This institute is situated in US. You can check whether it's New York or Washington, and it was formed in 1975. 1975, International Food Policy Research Institute. The report that it publishes is a good food policy report. Its objective is basically to remove hunger from the world by improving agricultural productivity. All right. Global Gender Gap Index. You know, World Economic Forum every year publishes Global Gender Gap Index, and India has been placed at 129th position. Although UPSC does not ask any kind of position of India on any indices, they are basically asked in SSC or banking examinations. What you need to know is that this index is published by assessing the level of female participation or the standard of female on 4 different parameters. The first is the economic participation, means their participation in the labor force. Economic participation, educational attainment, then you have health and survival, then political empowerment. So economic, political, education and health, these 4 things you need to know. If I currently remember, it has also been asked by the UPSC. All right. Global Gender Gap Index, World Economic Forum, it is a non-profit organization. It was formed in 1977. The Davos meeting every year in Switzerland. This is conducted by the World Economic Forum. All the prominent political and economic leaders, they converse, they discuss, deliberate different kind of upcoming like economic developments, or like let's say if there is some new shift in the global world economy, they deliberate here that how to manage that change in the global economy. Okay? So different business leaders, they give their view on different issues at the World Economic Forum Davos meeting. World Drugs Report, United Nations Office, है ना, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. This office was formed in 1997. ठीक है, it's headquartered in Vienna, Austria. You know two things: World Golden Triangle related to drugs, Golden Triangle and Golden Crescent. Golden Triangle में कौन कौन सी कंट्रीज हैं? दे आर म्यांमार, Laos and Thailand. In Golden Crescent there are countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan and Iran. Why they are Golden Crescent, Golden Triangle? Because they are the producers of illicit opium. ठीक है, so the opium production takes place on a large scale, and between Crescent and Triangle is in India, and India is the dumping ground for both these regions. You must know that the crisis in Manipur is mainly because of government action against opium production in hilly areas. ठीक है, so the Manipur case is quite complicated. On the surface we know that this is the crisis between two different communities. Of course there are two different communities, but the one community is led by or kind of fired up by the drug lords. National litigation policy by Ministry of Law and Justice. One small information. Then you have World Summit on Information Society. This was by International Telecommunication Union. If I correctly remember, this International Telecommunication Union was formed, I don't exactly remember, I think it is 1884. It is also one of the most oldest organization. It took place in Geneva. World Summit on Information Society. It was by International Telecommunication Union. You know, Telemanas, this is basically a health services related. Certain schemes were reviewed by the Ministry of Persons with Disabilities, and you just need to know the name. Yes. The first is DISA. This is about early intervention scheme. Early intervention and school readiness scheme. It means that the child's born with disability, there is a need to do some kind of early intervention, that if their case can be improved by the time they become adult, and also to assist them with education services. Then you have Vikas, a daycare. ठीक है, ये इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है उतना. You need to know the संभाव scheme, providing assistive devices to the children with disability. World Press Freedom Index, you know, it's about by Reporters Without Borders. This is basically SAN originally. So SAN means without. Reporters World Press Freedom Index, although I personally don't give much importance to such kind of index, because they are all often motivated. So politics apart, but still you need to know that this index is by Reporters Without Borders. There's also one organization of similar name, Doctors Without Borders. ठीक है, one report about OBCs. OBCs. You know, one homework that you must do is that see the articles in the Constitution from 338 to 342. These are about scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and OBCs. ठीक है, 340 talks about establishing commission to look after the welfare of other backward classes, although there is no definition of other backward classes in the constitution or in any statute, but the socially and educationally backward people are categories are castes are considered as OBCs. Okay. So you know there was Kaka Kalekar commission, then Mandal commission, the most debated one. Now we have a permanent national commission for the OBCs. Backward people. Okay. So Article 340, Article 341 is about, I think the content below is missing. Anyway, I do remember it. So, what is Article 341 is about the scheduled caste list, and the scheduled caste list is only with the government of India, central government. While in case of OBCs, this is mentioned in Article 342. Okay? So 342 has two lists, one is for the center and one is for the state. Okay? It's possible that one caste may be as part of OBC list in the center, but it may not be part of OBC list of the central government. Okay? So why this news is because first, the commission the government of India set up a commission known as Justice Rohini Commission. You know the topic of sub-categorization is hot currently because the Supreme Court gave judgment that there can be sub-categorization within the scheduled caste communities because scheduled castes are not monolith, neither they are homogeneous group of communities. So there is a varying degree of social, economic and educational advancement within the scheduled caste communities. So the states can sub-categorize to ensure that the communities which have been left behind so far, they can be brought back to the level of every other community. Similarly, the central government has set up Justice Rohini Commission, and its mandate was about sub-categorization. Okay? Sub-categorization. One more news related to that the Bihar government shifted certain communities of extremely backward OBCs to scheduled caste. Okay? Means that they were part of OBC list and they were shifted to scheduled caste list. But one thing is clear in the constitution that only the parliament has the power to change the list of scheduled caste communities. President notifies the list, the parliament changes the list. Okay? It can add a particular caste in the scheduled caste list of communities, it can remove a caste from the scheduled caste list of communities. The state government does not have authority to make any change in the list of scheduled caste, but it can sub-categorize. Means if let's say the reservation for scheduled caste is 15%, it can say that for these particular two castes, they will have the reservation of 5%. Within the 15% means 10% for the rest, 5% for the two communities. But it does not give, even the Supreme Court judgment of sub-categorization is very clear that states do not have power to change the list themselves. Okay? So the Supreme Court struck down a move by the Bihar government to bring certain extremely backward communities to the scheduled caste list. This was the first news. Second is the setting up of Justice Rohini Commission to see the sub-categorization issue in the extreme OBCs, other backward classes. Alright, so this was the last news, and after that, so this was all about polity of 3 months. Comparatively, the polity news are less compared to news from environment and economy or science and tech. After polity, we will move to environment related questions. Okay? And then economy, then science and tech, and one more session for miscellaneous topics. Alright, thank you very much.